I was a sophomore in high school when this happened. It was during May, and I stayed after school with half of my grade due to an award show. It was conducted by the literary department and our principal. Me and my group actually won the Best Message Award for our short film. Anyways, after the award show was over, me and my friends went back to our classroom to change into more comfortable clothes and to spend more time together while we waited for our parents to pick us up. Only 5 of us were in that classroom. As time went by, 3 of my friends left with their parents. It was only me and my friend in the classroom. 30 minutes later, her dad called her to say they were waiting for her on the schoolyard. By the way, our classroom is on the 3rd floor and the highest floor. Together we walked down the stairs to the ground floor. She asked me if I wanted to come outside with her and maybe wait in the waiting area next to the security. To this day, I curse myself for not saying yes. Instead, I said no, and decided to wait in the waiting area inside our building. I could have went to my principal's office and wait for her, since she liked spending time with me and talking to me. If you couldn't tell, I was a nerd and one of the top people in my grade. Anyways, in my school, there were 5 couches in the waiting area for both students and parents. As I was walking to the waiting area, I saw a janitor but didn't think much of it. I put my bags down, but as I was about to sit down, I had a weird feeling, like he was watching me and my moves. I felt too uneasy to sit down, so I stayed standing, holding my bags just in case I had to run or throw them to save myself. As a reflex, I raised my head and looked at him. He continued to look at me. It was as if we were in a race, whether neither of us were looking away. Believe me when I say I wanted to look away, but couldn't. Maybe it was because I saw him as a threat, or maybe it was because I was too scared and uncomfortable to move. He had this weird smirk on his face, but since it was getting dark, I couldn't exactly tell. I don't know how long we looked at each other. I broke out of my trance when I saw my classmate from the previous year walking outside the building. In a desperate attempt, I waved at her and she saw it. Then I remember her coming in and walking towards me, saying, "I saw someone waving," to which I replied with, "Oh, it was me. I thought you left and was surprised to see you waved at me. Actually, if you don't mind, can you walk with me to the waiting area next to the security?" As we were walking outside, I looked back and saw the janitor still staring at me. I was wearing high heels, short skirt, and a tight shirt, but it was an awards show, and we wanted to dress up. I don't think that these sort of stuff happen to women because of what they wear, but I do think he was staring at me because of my attire. At the waiting area next to the security, I was so anxious while waiting for my mom, thinking, what if he comes in here? Even when my mom came and when I got in the car, I was shaking slightly and wasn't in the headspace to speak about anything. So I told my mom that we got an award, but that I was too tired to speak. Also, to anyone wondering, I only told this story to 2 females I used to work with outside of school. I never had the courage to tell my parents or anyone in my school. However, after this incident, I tried to not be alone at school and always had someone with me in case something like this were to happen again. One of the reasons I never told anyone was the fact that nothing physically abusive happened, and I probably couldn't prove anything. This was a hard dose of reality for me, since I realized that females weren't safe anywhere, not even in their high schools. Writing this makes me feel a bit better in a way that I can finally let it out of my system. This is something that happened to me when I was around 15 or 16. I'm currently 24 and a female. I used to be painfully shy as a kid, so I had a few small groups of friends that I always hung around with. My first day of sophomore year, I met this guy, let's call him Seth, who was 18 or 19 in one of my classes, who seemed a little strange. I didn't think too much of it at the time because he seemed really nice. Finally, it was time for our favorite period, lunch. Lunch was reserved for my favorite people, 2 boys who graciously accepted awkwardly 13-year-old me after a dramatic move to my dad's home. One of the boys was actually my best friend and first boyfriend. Let's call him Jay. so we were really close, and I trust him more than anyone else. The other, let's call him Harry, was in the same class with me where I met Seth. Anyway, I sit at our table and we begin to start comparing teachers when Seth randomly joins our table. I figured that he was one of their friends, so we just continued like normal. After a few weeks, I started getting a little creeped out by Seth. He seemed to be everywhere I went in the school and always stood way too close. If I asked him to step back, he would point out other guy friends who stood closer. It was usually the same two guys who he would use as examples. For context, I'm in a wheelchair and was very tall, so my head was at the same level as that area. I eventually found out that he had seen what my school login was and saved it to his computer. Now, I didn't want to immediately freak out and report him, so I decided that I was going to just ask him to delete it. He said he would, and that was the end of that. As the months go on, Seth started to get worse. The class we had was a film class where the students would go out during the period in groups to do project independently. This was very scary because he would immediately claim me in his group, and it was nice to decline until we were put in pairs. He always tried to get me to go film with him in the backfields behind our school. The way he would suggest it got me so scared that I would refuse to leave the room. My teacher was amazing and didn't force anyone to go out. He would end up doing it alone, and I would edit. While Seth was out, I decided to see if he deleted my login. He hadn't. He had at least 20 other logins saved on this document, and I was scared enough to report it to my counselor. My counselor was a complete idiot, and decided to tell him that a girl in his class reported him. I found out because the next day he came to lunch and started accusing me, and he seemed really angry. I denied it, and Jay and Harry stuck up for me. It was shortly after this that I found out that neither of my friends knew Seth. He only knew of me when he joined our table. My counselor decided that my concerns were not important enough to notify our teachers or police. I guess it was not serious enough to warrant anything outside the school. They didn't even notify my dad. After everything happened with the report, he went back to being creepy but in a worse way. Every day he would try to convince me to go somewhere with him behind our school, and it had gotten to the point that he was trying to tell me I had to. He would make up excuses for us to go somewhere alone. I didn't tell anyone about it besides the school and my teacher later, because at the time I wasn't sure if I was just being crazy. I think my friends might have expected he was getting too pushy, because they started walking with me to classes when they could. I ended up telling my teacher what was going on, and he immediately started assigning seats and talked to another girl in my class to see if I could permanently join her group. Seth graduated at the end of that year and decided to resurface in my email box when I was 17 or 18 years old. I blocked him. This happened around my freshman year in high school. This was around March of 2019. Nothing bad has happened since then. I came to school at around 7:25 a.m., and since I came early, I helped one of my teachers. I'll call her Miss Villa. She was an awesome teacher, often described as the best teacher in my school, since she would often help out a lot of students within my school. Everything went normal for about 1 hour, until at around 8:27 a.m., when I heard the school alarm went off. At first, I thought to myself, what the fuck is going on? Since there hasn't been a school lockdown since 20 years, I just thought this was a drill, but it wasn't. The principal announced, "This is a hard lockdown, keep all doors closed." I felt very scared, but I tried to keep myself calm and said to myself everything will be fine, until I saw an old man in around his 40s, holding a gun. He didn't see me or anything, but I started to freak out, thinking he was going to hurt other people around the school. I was with my teachers, so I felt somewhat safe, since they called the authorities from my school. However, it didn't mean that I was 100% safe, as the man started yelling, started threatening teachers and students. The students and teachers were mostly inside the classroom, but I believe that there were a guy I knew that they were hiding. As soon as I told my teachers to do something about it, I heard a gunshot. My heart dropped and I was starting to panic. I heard someone scream, and I couldn't do anything about it, since the guy was mostly armed, and my teachers couldn't do anything about it. Then, I heard another gunshot, and this time one of my teachers got a knife and started attacking the guy. She was successful in hurting him, but didn't really injure him 100%. Then she started running away from him, and as she ran, the guy started running. He almost caught her but missed since there were now police up in the 4th floor of the building. He tried running away through the other side of the hallway, but then got caught by security. He was later identified as a 45-year-old drug dealer and sex offender, and he somehow got passed through the school security. Chills went through my spine after hearing this, because how can he manage to get passed through scanning without security even knowing? The only thing that really shocked me the most is who got shot. And knowing that it wasn't my teachers, since no one else was in the hallway besides him. Nonetheless, I still don't want to know, knowing that will only make things worse just by thinking about it.